All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board for the board. We hope that you enjoy. Welcome to episode 140 of the KissFAQ podcast. I'm Julian Gill, and I'm not your host today. Ken is. Take it over, Ken.
Yeah, I'm your host today, actually. I'll just say welcome back to Julian, Lonnie, and Mark from the Rock N Pod Expo. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about it today on this episode. That's what we're going to talk about. So we have, again, Julian, who is the admin on the board, Lonnie, who's St. Louis Kiss on the board, and Mark Anthony K., who's Marcus Almighty. So I guess, firstly, is there any news before we get into this?
I have something quick.
Yeah.
And I really quickly just indulge me for a minute.
I'm going to count to 60.
Clock's a ticking. Oh, they're here.
Ooh, that's it.
Nice.
It's
Very
the
cool.
final copy of Project Gemini.
And it is here.
It's shiny. It's obviously been
Pipe sticker and all.
freshly shrink back by Gore.
And here's the signing and the number on the back. I just go through really quickly. I'm going to do a whole other video for this, just for those who are interested. Inside you get the lyric sheet.
Cool.
Two-sided.
Nice.
Right? And as I promised, the first 50 people got the poster.
Awesome.
Right? And, as I promised as well, no crappy paper sleeves. This is the nice anti-static sleeve. And inside,
Ooh.
your blue vinyl.
Holy crap,
Nice.
that looks good.
That's cool.
Very cool.
And on the back side here has
I like that.
Very nice.
That's awesome label.
Well done, Mark. That looks fantastic.
Professional, definitely.
Thank you, guys. So I just wanted to just really quickly put that just up here because I know some people on the border who watch were asking about it. So just really quickly, I just wanted to show that it's here. And I will be putting up a Project Gemini update very shortly about what's going to be happening from here. So just so you guys could get a quick look at it, and then you can get more of the info on the update.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Any other news? Anyone hear anything in the Kiss world? I haven't heard anything.
I've heard lots of things. I just can't talk about any of them.
Oh, come on.
It's a deep tease. Thanks a lot, Julian.
That's great.
Let me put it this way.
Good news?
Yeah, I think people are going to like it. So you just have to wait and find out. Other than that, I do have a little bit of news as well. The third volume of my On Tour series, which is basically an updated edition of 1998 to 2016 now, is with the publisher. So that's going to be out imminently. It takes out all the non-Kiss shit, all the Ace Frehley solo stuff, Paul's 2006, and adds in all the reviews that I could find from a lot of those tours. So substantially different than the previous 1998 to 2014 version, and it's got a cover that kind of matches up with the most recent one. So the hardback should be out on the 15th. So take it over, Ken.
It's hold on. It's also kind of like Christmas Eve tonight because we're supposed to get that video message from Vinny tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I forgot about that.
Oh, that's right. What are we forgetting that for?
Right?
Yeah.
So
It's like Christmas Eve.
Good one, Lonnie. Good one.
Be
I
up all
hope it's
night.
a good Christmas day. I hope Santa Claus
Be up all
arrives.
night dreaming of Vinny.
Oh, by the way, Julian, is one of those things we can't talk about the thing that guy was talking to us at the table about, that we kind of looked at each other and said, did I just hear that correctly?
That's one of the cool things, but no, something
You
else.
guys are talking in code right now.
Yeah.
I must have been
I'm
back at the hotel.
I'm
Secret handshake.
All right. Maybe I can get Mark to tell me offline. Anyway.
Don't worry. We'll tell you after the show.
Okay. Yeah, it's all right. No big deal. All right, so let's get into this week's topic, which is about last weekend's Rock N Pod Expo out in Nashville. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there, but if it happens again next year, I'm sure I'll go to the next one. I don't want to miss that. So there it is. That's the program, right? Official program.
Yeah, that is. Looks really good as well. Great job, Chris.
Yeah, very well done.
Cool. So let's get into it.
Oh, hang on. I'll be right back. Keep going.
Okay. Let's get into it. So I have questions about the whole experience, and I know Alex, who's also part of our group and appeared on many podcasts, has questions too that he put up. I'll start off with the whole beginning part of it. Maybe just a background on when you first heard about it was going to happen, and your thought or your involvement with it. Julian.
Yeah, I honestly I don't remember. I mean, I heard about it very early on. Obviously, being invited to participate. A major amount of kudos, love, respect has to be sent out to Chris Sinzak of the Decibel Geek podcast for really running with the idea. I think it was BJ Cramp who came up with it, and Chris really ran with it and developed it from a dream into reality. And I don't want to talk about any particular role I may have played in the background, because there were an awful lot of people who did things to help bring this whole dream to fruition. I didn't do anything major. I helped where I could, as have many other people. So Chris was really the one in Nashville carrying the load. It started out as an idea of getting all these podcasts together in the same place to kind of cross-pollinate between them and interview people and do shows live from a venue, get an opportunity to meet one another, have guests, and it kind of grew and scaled from there. And all I can say from that is from conception to birth, it really lived up to all my hopes and expectations.
Cool. Lonnie, you want to
Yeah, I mean, it was. I guess, as soon as Julian mentioned it one time, I was really intrigued by the idea of not only meeting, potentially meeting Julian and some of you guys that have done the show with us over the last couple of years, but also, to actually see some of those other fellow podcasters that share the same passion that you do, whether it be taking time out of your week every week to do a podcast about Kiss or about Van Halen or Cheap Trick or just metal in general, just to be with people who have that same common bond and that same passion that you have. I really took to the idea right away, saying, you know what, I do this show with these guys every week, and if we could hook up and meet face to face, let's do it, let's go for it. So I was intrigued by it right away, and Chris did a great job organizing the whole event. It was for being the first time that one of these events has been put on. It was very well structured. There was no podcasters or anybody walking around bitching or complaining or anything like that. It really was a feeling of camaraderie amongst everyone, and no one was in competition with one another. Everybody, it was a level playing field, and it was a great time, and I'm very thankful that I went and also had the chance to go.
Awesome. Well, hopefully I'll get to meet you, Lonnie, finally, maybe in Atlanta. In January. So I'm gonna be there. So definitely. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty much echoing the same that the guys said. I mean, it was a fantastic time. The main thing that I was looking forward to is meeting the people I've been doing the podcast with for all this time. I mean, that's essentially the main reason why I wanted to go, because, I've spent so much time with them. They become like family, you guys, now to me. So, you were missed dearly, Ken. We really wish that you would have been there with us. And, we're keeping our fingers crossed that there will be a part 2, another convention, and that you will be with us there. So, and I think that we had a forest chair there for you in spirit there with us. So, But in any case, I think that it was really well done. Like Lonnie said, there was no complaining by anybody. Everybody was in high spirits. Just seeing some of these people meeting for the first time couldn't help but bring a slight tear to your eye when you saw people like, Ken Mills and Gary meeting the very first time or something. It was an unbelievable moment, to see some of these things. But, it was fantastic. And like Julian said, for it being the first time, so many things could have went wrong. And there was I couldn't see anything wrong. Everything went really smoothly. Lots of people there were happy. People left happy. There was good spirits were all around. So I have nothing but good things to say.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, okay, let's get into some of the questions. I guess one of my first ones, this is not the Kiss Room. One of my questions is, were there any meetups before, like the day or two before? Did you hang out or do anything before the day it happened on Saturday?
Well,
anybody?
Yeah. So Mark and I got into Nashville on Thursday afternoon, and with all the drama that happened with my baggage, my car rental, and all that crap, that killed a pretty good chunk of the evening. So we kind of get to the hotel, go just take care of getting settled in, and grab some dinner. So yeah, our first meetup was just Mark and me, getting to know one another in person, with some very lovely country music in the restaurant, y'all.
Yeah.
Right in front of the freaking guitar as well. A single guy. Come on, it's Nashville. It's country music, and they're either they're wearing cowboy hats or the retirees wearing iZods and tucked into their shorts, and for what it was, you're experiencing a different culture. So that first night there was nothing. Second night, now it gets interesting. Mark.
Yeah, well, on Friday they had the pre-convention kind of get-together at the Cobra, where they had those bands playing, like Desolation Angels, and there was a few other ones that played there. And already it was like, that was one of the highlight moments of the evening, because when we got there, it was a good time. You got to hear a really cool band, and we got to see two people who were associated with Kiss, one of them being the guitar player who wrote with Gene, I believe, and the guys, and the drummer who played in Blackjack, if I'm not mistaken. So, interesting Kiss connections right there, and it was great to go to see it, because then I'm pretty sure a few people in there made connections with those people for maybe further podcasting in the future. So again, you had this kind of great dynamic where not only were we entertained, but we also were able to network a bit as well, right? So that was a really good thing. And even before that, I'm not sure if Julian wants to talk about the meeting of the podcasters that they came in earlier in the day.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Okay. But just to follow on from your kind of evaluation, at the Cobra, the pre-show party was really cool. I was beat, so I wasn't going to be staying there for the whole thing. I stayed for Desolation Angels, Bad Company set, which is absolutely fantastic, though really, really, really loud. Scott Van Zandt, guitarist, absolutely fantastic guitarist, and I was wearing my my solo album book T-shirt, and their lead singer grabbed him and said, "Hey, this guy's obviously a Kiss fan." I'm like, "Hell yeah, Scott Van Zandt! I want to get you on the show and interview you and stuff." And we just exchanged details, got his card and whatnot. But Sandy Gennaro, 66 years old and banging the fuck out of the drums. He was simple kit, but more is less. What he did with it. The guy is still a monster, and he was always a very talented drummer, still is, even on a small stage in a club playing a cover set, extremely good, entertaining set. And then after that bailed out. I wanted a cup of tea, and knew the next it's going to be all about the expo day itself. So
and another thing too, sorry to cut you off there, but before all this happened, we had a great dinner, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Right. Lonnie was there.
Well, there was a good.
I was there.
Yeah,
I had dinner.
That's where we. Yeah, we
So
actually
Lonnie,
met. That's where
when did
we
you get
met,
in,
Lonnie.
I got in Friday afternoon. We drove down. We left around, I don't know, we left around 10 o'clock or so. It took around 4 or 5 hours to get down there. Wasn't too bad. It's an easy drive. Got there, checked in. Everything was great. You know, getting checked in. It was no, and I was kind of, you know, because I didn't make the reservations, but, you know, like I said, the people who were in charge of this did a fantastic job as far as hotel room bookings and the venue itself. Checked in, no problem. You know, yes, sir, we had you right here. That's fantastic, you know. Went on a beer run when I got there and disappeared for a little while. I told Julian I was there, and then I disappeared because I had to go on a beer run when I got there. And then we met up at the restaurant and had dinner. And, you know, Julian and Mark are already there. You know, my wife and I walked in, you know, there they are sitting there, you know, came up to them, you know, hey, what's going on? You know, just, you know, the first time meeting, but, you know, first time meeting in person, but it's like we're old friends at the same time. So it was, you know, it was fantastic to meet these guys in face to face for the first time. And yeah.
And that's what it was like. It was like meeting, you know, whether it was Lonnie coming in over your shoulder, hey, man, how you doing? You know, shake hands. It's like I've known you for years and not just known you online because we interact. Same with Mark at the airport. It's like I saw him come down the escalator. Like, hey, Mark, what's going on? You know? and
right. Yeah. A lot different than meeting someone that you just talked to on maybe social media, you know, now and then. So, we were more of a relationship with each other.
Yeah, you know, it was almost blasé in some ways, whereas, you know, a few hours earlier at the Opry Inn, you know, I meet Ken Mills for the first time, and it's just freaking hug, you know, someone so special like that. It's just like a spark there for a minute, and we're hanging out in the lobby, and you can see this online, and Ken talked about it, you know, quite a bit yesterday in his podcast episode. Him meeting Gary for the first time. We're just sitting down in the lobby. I've met Ken and BJ, Michael Butler, Greg Renoff. Mark was there as well, and Christine Carlson Wolf, the Button Queen. We'd all met and we're just kind of waiting there. And it's like, okay, Gary's coming. Gary Schaller, and Gary meets Ken for the first time. And they've done so much together over the years online. And it was just a insanely emotional and wonderful moment to see those two guys meet and just gigantic hugs. And then, of course, I haven't seen Gary since... I thought it was the Ace thing like 9 years ago, but he reminded me that it was the JCC for Paul Stanley's book, you know, just all that kind of meeting people, meeting Greg Renoff in the, you know, Van Halen Rising. Fantastic book, fantastic author. It was just all of these over and over. And then we're at Edley's, you know, and it was good barbecue there. And we're meeting, you know, the guys from Ages of Rock, Matt Porter. I can't remember if that's where I first met Matt or whether it was at the restaurant, but certainly there. Sonny, Joe Polo, who I'd met in New York, but, you know, it was just a fantastic. It was like one after another after another. It's like you turn around, you're meeting someone you've known online or know of online over and over again. It was like Groundhog Day in an absolutely amazing and an emotional way. I mean, just to be, you know, meeting Matt Porter, listen to the Kiss Room a lot, and, you know, to hear the voice that goes with the face and, you know, in person was really cool.
Well, that sounds like you could have almost, you know, just done that Friday and forgot about the rest of it almost, because just that alone was a cool thing in seeing everybody and meeting everybody, or most of the people. I'm sure there was more the next day, which let's get into it a little bit for the actual day of the expo. I guess what was another question here is, what was the setup like there? You know, I've seen pictures. It looks, I don't know how big of a room it was, but it looked a little tight to me. But that could be my perspective of seeing a picture or video. And how does it compare? I know, Julian, how does it compare to the size of, say, like, you know, the LA Kiss Expo room size kind of thing? Because that was a sound stage, which is probably a whole hell of a lot bigger than where you were at. But what was the sizing there? Did it seem like it was the size you thought it would be, or?
Yeah, you know what? It was about the size I was expecting. It was probably half the size of L.A., the soundstage. So, yeah, it was tight. But considering, what I was expecting in terms of... I had no reference point for... The venue was actually the Music Valley Event Center, which was just across from the hotel that Christine organized for everyone. So, I was expecting kind of a hotel-size event center. And it was exactly that sort of size. Plus, it had a proper sound stage or stage-ish on one end, and it was Spartan. It was basic. It wasn't fancy by any means. Was it adequate for the event? Yeah. It was perfectly fine. It was decent. It was decent. One thing I'll tell you, my judging of a venue is in the restrooms. Was the toilet paper and the hand towels refreshed throughout the day? Yes, they were. Oh. That's a win.
That's a good thing, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know what you have to compare it to, Lonnie, or
Yeah, I mean, it was a decent size.
You thought it would be. Yeah.
The venue's about what I thought it would be. Not. I mean, really size-wise, just about what I thought it'd be. Not any bigger, not any smaller. I was surprised actually how many vendors were there, as far as people with vinyl and things of that nature. I was, well, how many people are really going to be there with vinyl? There were quite a few vinyl dealers there, with some interesting stuff too. So it wasn't just run of the mill, just regular vinyl. I mean, they had some interesting pieces. So it was. I thought the vendors were good. I thought the setup was fine. They had drinks there too, which didn't suck.
Oh, well, they have what do you mean? Like a bar or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
I believe the owner provided the catering. I believe the concessions, and it was nice. And it was basically just I think nachos and hot dogs. I think the hot dogs were from about 1865, but they were they were cheap, and when you needed something to eat instead of going across to one of the restaurants nearby and you didn't have time, they were perfectly adequate, and the beer was cold, and they had Yingling and Miller Lite, and what the hell else do you need?
There you go.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you think?
I thought the setup was good. I mean, having gone to a couple of different conventions here in Toronto before, it was interesting to compare like a first-time convention from some of the first-time conventions I've went to. It was about the same. Decent size. Yeah, sure, it could have been maybe been a touch bigger, but I think it was just about the perfect size. I mean, considering that they brought Peter Criss's drum set and set it up in one spot, and they had the Kiss coffin in one spot, there was room enough for this plus 27 or so podcasters, and plus they had a sound like a mixing station with a mixing board and everything, like an actual mixing area. So it was set up well. I thought they had the table set up like in two rows facing out, right? So the backs were against each other from the podcasters, right? And you can go around that way easily and go to everybody, and the vinyl dealers were more up against the back, against the windows on the outer side. Yeah. So it was good. I thought it was really good. Everybody seemed to want to cooperate and help as far as electricity, because that was always the big thing with everybody's laptops and recording equipment and stuff like that. So that was all kept nicely in the middle. So, of course, you have to keep your eyes down when you're walking so you didn't do a nice trip header over a cable or something, right? But other than that, it was perfect. There was nothing wrong with the actual walking area for the people there, and I thought it was really well organized.
Oh, cool. So on the and Lonnie touched on it, but the vendors, there was a good amount. I guess all the vendors, they sold out all the vendors, or it was probably that was full. And did any of you buy anything from the vendors?
I did.
Or? Oh, okay, here we go.
I bought a Japanese pressing of King Crimson's Discipline.
Okay, cool.
I haven't seen this anywhere here in my neck of the woods, so of course I had to jump on it, right? And, of course, continuing the King Crimson vein, I bought a Andy Summers and Robert Fripp Japanese pressing.
So someone had a lot of Japanese stuff.
There was,
Yeah, well, the guy
directly across from us had a ton of Japanese stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Okay.
lots of Kiss Japanese stuff too, right? So,
That would make
but-
sense. Yeah.
but I went in there with a fixed amount of money. I said, listen, I'm going to just bring this much, and that's all I'm spending. And you can ask Lonnie and them and Julian. I had to really sit on my hands a few times and not get back up and go and tempt myself with more vinyl. But those were two that I really wanted, so I got those. But there was lots of Kiss stuff there. There was lots of all kinds of records I went around. There was Bowie. There was all kinds of box sets that one guy had in one of his little sections there. So you could really get a lot of stuff, like Blu-ray audio stuff they had as well. And it was really, really good selection.
Cool.
yeah,
Did Julian or
yeah.
Lonnie get anything?
I did not. I was
did-
tempted, but I was on my good behavior.
and I didn't get
That
anything.
and I had a watchful eye.
Yeah.
I didn't have a watchful eye, but I'd lost half my luggage, so I was limited by not knowing how much of my stuff was going to fit in my luggage to get home. I walked around and I checked out some of this stuff. Some of the Japanese Kiss stuff right across from us was really cool. There was a guy right next to him with a ton of R&B, Motown, and doo-wop, and that sort of genre of stuff, which I thought was fantastic. Great CDs. Again, I was planning on going back later in the day and maybe getting a few things, but I was just so distracted and over the place kind of mentally. The only place I got back to regularly was the bar, which kind of suited me just fine. But when they were ripping down at the end of the day, I saw one guy putting some stuff away that it kind of got knocked behind. I was like, shit, should have bought that. But again, I'm a seller, not a buyer these days, so it really took a little bit of self-control. I was impressed by the diversity of what was on offer. I know that all the CDs, all the box sets. Ken mentioned it on his show yesterday. The guy selling magazines, classic Kiss magazines,
here's some really nice ones.
Was the big win, and you heard the podcasters all talking about that, and there being a little bit of a scramble over there to see what this guy had. So that was one of the really good things. What I think Chris did a great job in was getting good variety. So it wasn't a Kiss Expo. That's the important thing to remember. That all these podcasts that were at this event are not all Kiss oriented. So
Sure.
the vendors reflected that value as well, which I thought was really good and well balanced for anyone coming in, no matter what genre you're into. I think there was a vendor there that covered some bases for you.
Okay, cool. Including yourself, because you were you selling
Yes.
some of your books?
Julian was a vendor as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to sell my books, those which had not been destroyed by United, and part of the problem with going to an event.
We're not going to get United to be a sponsor on the show anytime soon.
No, especially when they refuse my claim. You go to these events, and I only really had what stock I had on hand. I didn't order anything special. I had 2 giant monster orange copies of the whole On Tour compendium,
Those are really cool.
which I'd been planning to give it to Gene and Paul. I actually wrote that on the inside. This copy was intended for Gene, and this one was intended for Paul, but instead for the Nashville. Some books got damaged. I had to mark down the prices. And, Nashville is not L.A. in terms of price point. So, I shifted everything. I sold every single thing except for some of these single chapter books because I didn't want to bring any of it back. I cut some deals. If someone was buying multiple copies, here we'll do a deal. And that's just the way I work. So I had a great time, selling, and it was fun. I had people who were checking out the books and saying, "Hey, I've already got this one. Nice job to you and Tim." So Tim, if you're watching this, your name was mentioned quite a bit. You don't have any copies of Odyssey? Oh, So yeah, I as a vendor as well as a podcasting booth, we did well, and you guys. Lonnie and Mark knew that because I disappeared at the beginning for one of the opening events, and they were
we earned our keep while you were gone.
Yeah, they sold most of the cool books before I even got a chance to.
Really?
Yeah,
They pocketed the money.
Yeah, we're off to lunch. We're off to lunch now, Julian. See you later.
See you later.
Yeah. I guess what was the the traffic like in there? So people that were coming in and not your group or the friends and family who were part of the expo, crowd, but the other people that actually came to attend, were they more coming? Could you tell whether they came from local or more local to Nashville or around the area, or did you suspect or have anybody fly in from great distances just to come?
I think most were local.
Yeah, but there were some that came in. I mean, I think it was a mixed bag, to be honest. Like in most conventions that I've ever been to, the attendance was in kind of waves. Like there was like a whole mess of people that would come in at one point, and then you'd have a little bit of a lull for a while. And all of a sudden there'd be another huge wave of people again. And then, you know what I mean? It was like that throughout the day. But we had lots of people. I'm sure when it was me and Lonnie there for a while, there was a few people that were in from the Nashville area that came and talked to us. And there was a couple of people that I talked to that were not from Nashville, but not maybe like the state over, or just had a bit of a drive to, right? So there was a lot of regional people, of course, but there was some people from out of state too.
Yeah, because of course 2 of our podcast participants, Joe, People's Elbow, and a very early participant, Jay, both came down from Indy. So Jay was coming down for the Raven show, which was going on that night in Nashville, but stopped by the expo to see us and to experience it. So I mean, that was fantastic. So both of you guys and everyone else who traveled in, thank you so much for making the effort to travel in and coming to this event and supporting it. Very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get we'll get into some of Alex's questions. I don't want to take it all up.
Okay.
My questions.
Well, to answer the first one, no, there was not a Village People podcast present.
Right.
Yeah.
No, the original policeman was not there.
He can start a Village People podcast. Maybe he could be the first.
Yeah.
Why not? All right. So we kind of hit your expectations.
But the hot construction worker was there, Alex. You missed it.
Oh, he was a real construction worker, maybe. So, I guess one of his questions was, what do you feel was the? He said, what do you feel was the good, or good, real good, the best parts of the whole expo itself?
Well, like I said, I think the best part of the whole thing was meeting everybody that we met. I mean, that to me was the big point for me, because I've listened to a lot of these podcasts for a long time. Like, I think I caught on to podcast on like episode 8. So that's a long way back when I first got into it. And, I'd even told those guys, and they were really touched by the whole thing, that people were listening for that long back to it. So for me, the big point was meeting all the people that were there. And one of the big surprises for me was one of the podcasts that I listened to quite a lot is the Double Stop, it's called, with Brian Sword. And I talked to him there, and we hit it off right away, and lo and behold, he's a Canadian. So I was totally in shock, and in fact, he lives in Ontario. So I was like, "Wow, this is fucking awesome!" Like you live like not even that far from where I am. So of course, the conversations were fast and flowing with me and him, and emails have already been sent back and forth. So I'm hoping to continue talking with him. He's a really cool guy and a good bass player. From the video I saw of the jams that they did that night, and it's stuff like that was really cool. And one of the things that I must stress was really, really good was I had some dynamite dinner conversations with not only Julian, but with Lonnie as well. We had a big talk about St. Louis with me and Lonnie there, talking about the city and avoiding the subway system at all costs there.
Talked about the area in which I work in. You guys hear sirens going on, and worse than that sometimes. And I love talking to Julian about all kinds of music stuff. We had a lot of good conversations about the music business and stuff like that. And I really, really enjoyed those kinds of, one-on-one conversations. I really loved having, and also in the morning, we had a great breakfast conversation with Gary Schaller. Now that was something I thought was really awesome. So it's moments like that I will say is a double thumbs up good from the convention.
Yeah, that breakfast, the conversation was definitely better than the food at Shoney's.
Should have told me you were going there. I would have warned you.
All right, guys, I got to step away, believe it or not. So I'm going to let you continue. I'm putting the questions out there still. I guess I'll give you another question. What would you like to see, different? I don't know if that question is in the next one or in that one. What would have you like to see happen differently or set up differently? I guess while I step away, go ahead and
Lonnie.
take it away.
Nice. I don't know. I mean, I thought it really was about what I expected. You know what I mean? I think it lived up to my expectations. I don't think I walked in the room that morning and felt like, oh wow, this is it, or I wish there was this, or I wish there was that. I think it really fell in line with what I thought the event would be. It lived up to my expectations in the fact that I think I was really taken back by the camaraderie amongst the podcasters. That we all do our own show every week. Everybody does their own show, whether it be every week, bi-week, once a month, whatever. And we all talk. I mean, there were 4 or 5 KISS podcasts there, and we all talk about the same thing, KISS. But like we were right behind Podcast Rock City, and Jody Havnut was right behind us, and I've seen Jody at different events around town because he lives not real far from me. And I walked in, he goes, "Hey Lonnie, what's up?" And just started talking immediately about the Gene show that we saw a couple months ago, and whatever. He talks about, "Oh, I love you on the show. You know this topic that you guys did a couple weeks ago," and we're all like, we don't make any money off of this, but we're all maybe in competition with each other for listeners, because you know what? I'm not out there listening to every KISS podcast every week, and I know you guys aren't listening to every show either. We're in competition with each other for listeners at the end of the day, but the camaraderie amongst each other, I was really taken aback by that.
Yeah.
And there was no podcast there was no podcast present that was too big for the moment or too good to be there, or that we're better than you because we've done this many episodes, or we have this many average viewers per week. Everybody was on the same level playing field as far as I was concerned. We were there, and the respect for each other. I thought I wasn't expecting that. I can tell you that.
And that was so very evident from the moment I got in for setup. I got in at 8 a.m. And people were already there. I just staked out where I thought we were supposed to be on the table. Started setting up. Start bumping into people. Same guys I'd met in New York for the Peter thing. It's like, hey man, how you doing? It's like each other. It was just. This was something special from the get-go. What it was going to be, I said it that night. I said it's either going to be awesome, or we're going to turn it from a disaster into a glorious disaster, a fun disaster. That if it doesn't work out as planned, the people who are there are so invested in it that we're going to make it fun, no matter what happens. But it didn't need that. In trying to think about, what we would have done differently, I don't want to think about any of that, really. It's about celebrating what was accomplished and what was done and how well it went. I mean, just turning around. I mean, the podcast Rock City guys, Ages of Rock, Alan Tate, getting to meet him, getting to meet BJ. We had Talk to Me on our other side, which was cool. And then, what is it, Clock Strikes...
10.
Yeah, who I with Joey, doing their stuff right behind us as well. So I mean, it was just one thing after another. There was no ego tripping. There was no superiority complexes. We were talking about how we like to do our things, different styles, different ways. People got some really cool freaking gear out for what they're doing for their shows. I said how we do ours, which is as little work as possible, because I'm a very lazy person. I just want to cut the beginning, cut the end, stick it in, and go. And there are guys who are doing multi-track and Pro Tools, and really dealing with the sound man who was going to be doing a lot of their stuff. So again, it was all about camaraderie and respect, and opening up new relationships. As Mark, you said, that you've got a guy up in Ontario now, and you've got that. Well, there were guys who I was talking to, and I'm saying, we're the sort of podcast that we believe in cross-pollination, that anyone is welcome to come on our show and talk about topics that, they want to talk about. And I think it's good for the community, that you get someone like Michael Butler, who's been doing this a very long time. You get the Podkiss, who've been doing this 10 years. You get Talking Metal, Decibel Geek, Cobras and Fire. Don't forget your jerk socks.
Yeah, and I mean, don't forget. Yeah, and I mean, Talking Metal, for example, is a pretty well-known and highly respected podcast, and those guys were really great. I mean, John Astronomy and Mark there.
Mark.
He was really, really cool guy. I mean, one of the guys who I've just talked to now recently as well. We made some connections about my record now. So, and it's one of those things that, there was nothing I could think of that I would change on this, because in fact it far exceeded what I thought it was going to be like. It was much better, so there was nothing I would change on this, to be quite honest with you. And talking about the camaraderie, like Lonnie was talking about, I mean, there were lots of times where people were, in need of, let's say, duct tape or this or that, or can you pass me this, do you have anything like this to help me out with? And people were going out of their way to help each other, which was really great, because I've been to some conventions before where people would purposefully say, no, I don't have any of that, and they'd have it in their bag, just because they tried to one-up somebody, and there was none of that in this here. There was so much great positive energy in there that you didn't even feel uncomfortable going up to people that have been in this business for so long, and talk to them, because you just felt like you could talk to them on the same level as everybody, so, and I thought that was really important, and I thought that vibe was also important for people who were coming in as fans of the podcast and not feel intimidated to come up and talk to some of these people, right? So I think that it all went off beautifully.
Yeah. I can say one of the highlights for me was Mark and I were sitting there when Julian was on stage, and we had several people. It was right when the expo opened, and we had several people come up and they go, "You guys are the reason I came here. I listen to your show every week, and the FAQ podcast is the reason why I'm here." I was really taken back by that. I was like, somebody said, "I listen to you guys every week," and I said, "You're the guy that listens to us every week."
You're the one guy that really.
But it was very humbling that this guy that several people came up to. I listen to you guys every week, and I look forward to hearing your guys' show and hearing your perspective on whatever topic we're talking about that week. I was really taken aback by it. I thought it was something I wasn't expecting, was to hear something like that.
I hope you gave them a free button. You did. Okay.
I did. Yeah. I said, "Here, have a button."
Good.
Julian doesn't want to take all of these home.
No, and that was important to me, because too much or too often I am associated with the KissFAQ, and everyone else's name is drowned out of the conversation. It happened too often with the great projects that Tim headed up as news admin. You got to remember that he did so much for the website before we ever did the solo album project or the Novelda project. Those were Tim's babies, and too often people would talk and say, "Julian this, Julian that," and forget Tim. So I was really pleased, whether it was January in LA and Tim got to be there and participate in this sort of thing, or you guys getting to be there and get some of the love and appreciation. And thank God it was we love your show rather than your the other way.
You guys suck.
Rather than the other way around.
Wasting your time.
And I missed that first part of the doors opening because
Julian's
I
on
was
stage when that happened.
I'd forgotten that I had agreed to do that, and I was like, oh crap, because the
Julian was important when he was on stage.
The doors opening, you want to be a part of that, and so you guys got that all to yourself. So fantastic.
It was really cool.
Awesome.
So where
did you guys live?
Yeah, we kind of skipped through the different...
People did ask where you were, Ken. You were not forgotten. You were not forgotten.
Oh,
they go, where's the voice of reason? What are you two schleppers doing here? Where's Ken?
Did you go over what were you excited, or who were you excited to meet the most in person?
That's the next question.
And plus, as part of that, the excited to meet, like, it could be even another podcaster, or it could be, like Mark Slaughter, for instance, or any of those guys, musicians or producers that came in.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I wanted to meet Ken Mills, obviously, and I wanted to meet Matt Porter, obviously, as well, because, I mean, I've been listening to their stuff for quite a while. Like I said earlier, I did want to meet up with Brian Sword from Double Stop, because I did listen to that podcast quite a bit, and he had some really good guests, and I thanked him personally for bringing on, like, Dave Whitman, who engineered Dress to Kill and all these records on his show. It was one of the best episodes of his podcast I've ever heard. And just recently he had Steve Thompson on, who did mixed all the Guns N' Roses records, so that was a really great interview. I think Lonnie would really love that one. He went into great detail about doing the Guns N' Roses records. So that was one thing that I was very happy about. And it's ironic, though, that you mentioned Mark Slaughter, because I'm not sure if you saw the picture that I had of me and him together there, but I did actually meet him, and I did talk to him for a bit, because I did mention to him, ironically, that I really respected the guy, because his solo record he just put out now was a total do-it-himself affair, much like how I'm doing my thing. So I kind of mentioned that, that I respect and know how much work you can go into doing a record on your own. And we had a little bit of a chat about that, and, about engineering and how much fun it is to do stuff when you're doing it by yourself, and how much you have to kind of rely on yourself to do those things. But it was it was a short chat, because, lots of people want to see him there as well. But, we had a good couple of minutes there, and he was cool enough to sign the back of something I had there for an autograph, and he took a couple pictures with me, and that was great, because I've also listened to Slaughter from way back in the day. I was talking to Julian about that over dinner, about how Up All Night used to play at every single bar I used to go to see concerts. They'd always put that on before the band would go on stage, and it was almost like a ritual. Like, before the band goes on, Up All Night's going to be on the video screen, so so I have Slaughter firmly etched in my brain throughout my teenage years.
Didn't we agree that The Wildlife was the better album?
Yes, we did.
Okay, that wasn't a figment of that Coors Light I drank, I hope.
No.
Okay. Lonnie, or Julian, who were you, looking forward to meet? I think you all said Ken Mills, but
I think Ken Mills and Matt Porter, I think, are the highlights that I wanted to meet, because, like Mark, I've been listening to both those guys for a long time before we started our show, and they were both very influential in what they do, and they bring their passion to their shows, and that's something that when I started doing this, I wanted to bring in as well. So I was excited to meet them face to face. I had met Jody from and D-Rock from Podcast Rex City. I've met them a few times, so it was good to see them again. But Matt Porter and Ken Mills for sure. Other than of course Mark and Julian here, and I was also excited to meet Joe, because I knew Joe was coming down. Julian had told me that a couple days prior that Joe was going to come down, so I was excited to meet another guy from the show. I was disappointed that when Jay came by, I had gone back to the hotel room briefly, and I didn't get to meet him. So I was disappointed I didn't get to meet Jay, but hopefully our paths will cross again.
Yeah, and that was, what kills me is I did not get an opportunity to do too many pictures during any of this because I was just so focused on living the event rather than documenting it. Jay was there, and it's like, shit, I've already ripped down half the stand and didn't even get a picture with him. I feel real bad. One of his friends took a picture of him talking to me, but that's not the same, man. Arm around shoulder, getting a shot. A guy who's been on the show and done a lot for the KissFAQ podcast. Jay, I apologize, and to everyone else as well, for not being one of those people who remembers to do photos with you. But again, thank you so much for being there. It's just you're kind of wrapped up in the minute, and I had a few beers throughout the day. That's not to the point where it affected me, but I was living right then, just sucking in every moment rather than having my camera was also, my phone was plugged into my credit card reader. So no excuses. But next time, and I hope there is a next time when I meet anyone, let's do some pictures because we just did not do much. Who was I most excited to meet? You guys, because when I met Ken and we did the drive down to LA, we had such a fantastic time, and it was just so mellow and chill that it's like you've known someone for years, because you have known them for years. But as I keep saying, meeting people in the flesh and shaking hands is just way cool. I like going offline. And, just to meet you guys and now to be able to do these shows that we've met in person, it feels more real. To have met everyone else, I don't want to pick favorites between the rest of the guys at the podcast because there are so many cool people. I'm only going to say one person I was, maybe that 1% more excited to meet, and that was Ken Mills. Ken has been an inspiration to me for many years. The way he comports himself online, the way he does his shows, the way he celebrates everything, but it's also not just wearing a pair of permanent rose-tinted glasses. He has a laugh. He has a joy. He has so much about him that if we can just grab onto a little bit of what he gives the community, it'll leave you smiling. And when I was listening to the podcast last night while doing my walk around the soccer fields, I just had a shit-eating grin the whole time. I think I posted that on Facebook. I was just smiling and laughing. People were looking at me like, what the hell's the matter with that moron?
It's like, I'm smiling. Stop it.
That dude's creepy.
Creeping me out.
There are children here. But, just listening to the passion and the emotion in Ken's voice when he did a show. Other than that, again, everyone who I met, I have a great deal of respect for what you do, how you do it, and I can't pick a favorite, but definitely meeting Ken was just that little bit extra special.
Yeah, but I'll say one thing though too, just really quickly, is that what these podcasts give back to us is right there evident with what Julian said. I mean, I was telling the guys from Pods and Sods, Eric Miller and I forget what the other gentleman's name is,
Craig Smith.
That's it, Craig Smith. That on the way down, I was listening to an episode of theirs. They were doing a focus on Journey's, I think it was Frontiers, album. And I was laughing on the plane, and I got that same thing where somebody was just kind of looking at me wondering, why the hell is this guy laughing so much? Because they were so good, and they are so good when they do these kind of full album reviews, and Jody too. Like, I mean, he had me on the podcast Rock City a few times, and when I met him, I was meeting like my long lost brother. Big hug, because we were big gearheads and talk about guitar stuff and things like that. So it just felt like your long lost cousin, and it's really good. I mean, you like Julian said, there are so many people that I had a great time with, and we're looking forward to talking to. We could be here for 4 hours doing it, just like Podcast Rock City did. They put up a 4-hour Nashville Expo retrospective on their site. So if you want to get a real glimpse at how it was, they have a 4-hour episode on their podcast there. So, so you know what I mean? Like, we could be talking all day about all the people that we met, but everybody had something to offer, and it was a great time.
That leads into another thing, because I noticed, a few of them did podcasts, there while they're there. So, was there, any thought to doing a podcast while you were there? No, not at all.
No, you know what? I had not planned to do anything live or try and tape anything at a venue. I just didn't think that would work with my gear. And I didn't want to lug all, I'd have to bring my Mac and mics and all that. And, I just had to decide, do I want to try and make some money selling books, or do I want to bring the Mac and all the recording gear and not try and offset some of the costs of doing this? So I had no intention. I did bring the video camera, and I'd intended to try and shoot a bit more kind of footage talking to. I only managed to ask Mark the few things and shoot some of the footage. I never got around to Lonnie, and then it also didn't seem to work. So listening to the other guys trying to podcast with all the background noise, I haven't listened to any of those episodes that they've done, so I don't know how well it worked out. Maybe they have better gear than I do, and better technical knowledge of how to do it under those sorts of circumstances. But the guys who were doing the shows up on stage, I thought that was great. People get to watch that and kind of experience it live and in Technicolor, especially the drunken lullabies. Very, very cool. But for the way we do it and the way I kind of do it, again, I'm a naturally lazy person.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I got hopped on to ask to go on the podcast Rock City when they were doing their live recording.
I heard you on there. I heard it too.
Yeah, and the problem with doing that, and they'll be the first ones to admit it, is that a lot of background noise, a lot of people talking around there, and the other thing that happened a lot was you'd be talking about a topic, and all of a sudden somebody just come in from out of nowhere hey, and just start talking,
right.
And hey, it's Ken Mills, and all of a sudden your ears get blown off because they're yelling in the microphone all of a sudden, right? So it's it's not the best technical kind of a recording experience, but I thought that for how it went, I listened to most of that 4-hour episode in my car, and I think they salvaged quite a bit of good stuff off of it. So, hats off to them. I mean, from what I heard through my headphones, I thought it was going to be a disaster, but they seem to salvage it.
May not be pretty, but it sure as hell was fun, because I was doing one with I think it was Baco. I can't remember who it was behind me. Clock Strikes, and just doing some bumpers for the show after I picked my one song, and it was just every time I'd start to say it, there's some noise. I loved it. The atmosphere of trying to do it in those circumstances, I think is really neat. I don't think you're going to get a great quality sounding show out of it, but I think it sure as hell going to have a lot of flavor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it does. And I listened like the one with Mark was on Podcast Rock City. It's like you said, 4 hours, and it was interesting the whole way through. Listening to it, it was cool. It just kind of went from subject to subject, and enjoying seeing all the different people that stopped by, and so it was cool to hear that. Now, Julian, you were on stage a couple of times. The first time, I want to say the first, were you on a panel?
Yeah,
or something like that?
Yeah. It was.
What happened in that panel?
It was kind of the opening ceremony, the opening panel, and I was next to Joe and Gary. I think Dr. Fuck was up there as well. It was kind of why Kiss and why podcasting. And if it shows up, if it got videoed, if it turns up, I don't really recall. I think I just said something to the effect of how Kiss really, as an immigrant, is that first really American pop culture thing I remember after moving to America, and then a little bit of my history as a fan, getting into them in the 80s. I never wanted to do a podcast. It was, basically what I said. When I was invited to fill in on one, I turned it down because I wasn't ready to. And then Daniel, who, I hope they show it, because Daniel gave you the shout out as the guy who really pushed to get a KissFAQ podcast going. So, the panel was just kind of asking people those sorts of general questions, and it was good fun. I took a photo out from the stage, and you get to see a bit more of the venue from that perspective. And, I was honored to be invited to be a part of that.
I know I saw the other video.
No, Jesus.
There is a video of is it Rip It Out, right?
Yeah, that's right. And after the event was over, we all ripped down. We'd taken off to have some dinner, and I got back and just kind of hung out. By that time, stone cold sober, drinking water, which is not the way I envisaged trying to attempt this. But, we had planned to do a jam session, and it was something that I was really looking forward to. We knew what songs we were going to do, but no one had played together before. There was no rehearsal. Mm-hmm. There was really no sound check, which really shows for me because I had practiced my song at album key, album speed, and of course I do play guitar and play along to it, which I didn't on stage, so I was all sorts of discombobulated. They go in and it's higher. I go in, start high, and I'm like, I'm too high. My voice is shot. I can't maintain this even. So I bumping myself down into the second verse. I finally get somewhere where I can actually sing. But it was a blast. It was something, I was really looking forward to. I was, had a really cool group of guys on stage for me. BJ on rhythm, Gary Shallert, who absolutely knocked it out of the park on many songs on lead guitar. Who was playing bass? Was it Alan?
Brian.
It was Brian Sword on bass, and the incredible Lee McCormick on drums. I just want to say one other thing. I'm going to punch in, rip it out at this point, so that everyone can. I don't even remember. I think this is from Lee's girlfriend's or partner's video as well. So if I've miscontributed or attributed who that video is from, I do apologize in advance. But Lee McCormick is an incredible musician. He did a little bit of soundtrack on his guitar at the very beginning, and he played two songs, or he played many songs that night, but he was messing around with some of Bruce Springsteen's Glory Days. And I was like, I actually like this song. And you've heard me bitch and moan about my experience at a Bruce Springsteen show that I got so bored I actually went walking around the Oracle Arena in Oakland, which is one of the dumbest things you can do. He did.
Right.
He did an absolutely storming version of Badlands, which made me completely. I'm gonna order a Springsteen's Greatest Hits from Amazon because he's made me say I need to go back and reappraise my attitude against Bruce Springsteen, and that's one of my big takeaways from this. I mean, he was like Johnny Cash, just chug-a-lug-a-lug-a guitar, and I freaking loved it.
That's a good one. I know, right? You doing it?
It's all right, I got it all. Okay, here we go. Every Bruce Springsteen song starts like this. 1, 2, 3. Trouble in the hall, man, gonna hit on wish, crashing and guts down, call it crossfire, and I don't understand. What is going on over so little, I don't care, but the wheels in my seat, I don't give in, I'm just living peace, what I want to so I want to hold right now. You better listen to me, talk to the trick, that is real. Honey, I live my back straight, real good right now. Oh, they want me rich, rich man want me good. They're giving satisfied, they want everything. Oh, go out tonight, we'll find out what I got. I need love, I need it, I need a face, I can see it. That
other, really cool song performed that night was one I've never heard before in my life, and that's Circle Sky by the Monkees. And Ken Mills on bass, Christine Carlson Wolf on vocals with Lee McCormick, I believe. And, I've never heard that song. And it was just such, these are guys who've not played this together. So...
All right, are we ready for some monkeys? All right, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Just really, really fun way to end a really, really fun day with a great bunch of people. Everyone, Lee was really kind of organizing. Next song is, here's who's coming up. If someone wasn't there to play something, someone would fill in. And they just rocked the frickin' house. So, good fun. I would love to do that part again anytime.
That's awesome. So, if there's a next time, I mean, do you hope there's a next time for this? And then also, I mean, should it be in the same, city, or what do you think? Thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I have a vibe that it's going to happen again. And I think that it should stay there. I mean, Nashville is, music city.
Music,
I mean,
yeah.
And I think it's, one of the, as far as what, just the whole vibe of it, I think that Nashville is well suited for it. I mean, never have I been to a city that had as much guitar artwork everywhere. Even the hotel rooms had like pictures of guitars and stuff like that. So it was a very musical city, and I feel that it takes to this kind of stuff very strongly, So I mean, I know. Sorry to cut you off there, Lonnie, but what's your thoughts?
No, I think Nashville is a great location for it. Not only is it the music city, but it's also centrally located. Kind of in the middle of the country. Granted, it's more East Coast than where Ken and Julian are, but it's more. I think it's with the East Coast population being what it is. I think it's a good spot. There were people that drove 12 hours to be there that I was talking to, which I thought, that's dedication, driving 12 hours to go to that. But I think Nashville had a good vibe to it for the event itself. If it happens again, I definitely foresee it being in the same city.
Yeah, and I mean, also speaking from a Canadian perspective, most people were very much boggled when I told them that I only had an hour and a half flight from Toronto to Nashville.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if that's because I took a CMJ 100 jet, which is a smaller type, jet plane, which only has like 2 seats per side. It's a kind of a smaller jet. Mm-hmm. And this guy, because we were originally like late leaving, I'm not sure if he was just putting the pedal to the metal on this thing, because I was telling Julian that I distinctly
remember... Can you put the pedal to the metal on an airplane?
Oh yeah, like put the throttle down.
Yes, the throttle.
Because I just think there is for braking, but anyway, that's another.
I'm just being an ass.
And your rudder.
I'm just being a jerk.
Yeah. But I distinctly remember at one point in a plane flight there that I felt like I was being pushed back in my seat a little more than I was in other flights. Like I seriously did, and he got there really, really quickly. And I mean, it's not that long a flight really, because I remember going to Florida. It only took 2 hours and a bit from Toronto, so it makes sense that it would only be maybe an hour and a half flight. But it's a direct flight, right? So, I if there's anybody else from Canada, from my area, who was thinking of going, you have a short flight, really. I mean, if that's not a bonus to go, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, so I was getting pushed back in my seat on my flight too, but that was security.
Stay in your seat.
Stay in your seat, sir.
No more drinks.
Yeah.
I did not have a drink on the flight back. I mean, that was a horrible flight anyway. So, God.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. No, we got off on time. It was just it was a Boeing airplane, which meant that the backs of the seats all had those stupid little screens on showing commercials all the time, and no one fucking turned them off. It's like, you're not watching it, turn it the fuck off, because you're trying to sleep.
Boeing's not going to be a sponsor on the show either now.
I hate Boeing jets. The Airbus on the way out was way, way, way better. So
I guess the other thing, after it was all done, at the end of the day, do you guys have any more, after dinner meetups or a party or whatever that evening after the show, or you just kind of call it?
You two cats had bailed out. So
yeah, sorry, Julian.
So after the jam session ended, I slunk off. I was emotionally spent from the whole day. I just wanted to get back to my room and have a cup of coffee, and I didn't want to be out all night. I didn't want to touch any more beer. I didn't want to see any beer. I just wanted a coffee and to relax. And we were up pretty early the next day because we went out to Cracker Barrel for breakfast. So got to experience that. And now I know why their biscuits are so good, Mark. Because remember that box I brought back?
Yeah.
The last ingredient, artificial flavor. That's why they're so good.
Yes.
And
there you go.
I'm still trying to figure out what artificial flavor do you put in biscuits? For fuck's sake.
I don't know. That's the secret of the great taste there. I mean, as far as me and Lonnie, I mean, we were there for a bit, but beforehand we went out for dinner, and I think that's when I had the chicken salad there. And when we were watching the preparations there or the evening's activities, I started feeling a rumbling going on in my stomach, and I was like, uh-oh. Yeah, and I started noticing a bit of gas buildup, and I thought rather than A-bombing the whole building out there, I figured
that's enough.
It may be it was just gas mainly, but I had to get out of there, so I figured it was
go home.
Yeah, I figured it was better to leave on a good note, so that's why I wasn't there.
There you go. All right, so
anyway.
Anything else on that we maybe didn't touch last? To me, it just sounds like I'm sorry I wasn't there because of all the people I could met and just hanging out with, like you said, all the people, meeting the people that you listen to on other podcasts, regularly, and just meeting our own family here at the KissFAQ is a great experience too. So, anything else that thoughts or final thoughts on the whole experience of this? And are you ready to go next year?
I think one of the other questions that Alex had was who was your MVP? And you know what?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's right.
Chris Sinzak. Without a doubt. I think also the person who assisted with some of the the GoFundMe. Everyone who contributed to the GoFundMe is an MVP. You helped make this happen, and thank you very much. We appreciate all the support that you gave us. Everyone who gave, whether it was whatever to whatever, it was a part of making this into reality. I think I'd also like to give another shout out to Christine Carlson Wolf, the button queen, for not only organizing buttons for a lot of us, and I have extras, so if you're a person who does want a button, shoot me a message and we will try and get you one. But she also organized the hotels for a lot of us, which was a really big help.
That was fantastic.
And organized a block. I know that some people had some problems at that hotel with their rooms being a bit musty and stinky.
I heard that.
My room was fantastic. I didn't have any problems whatsoever. So, in Nelson Muntz, haha. But thank you very much, and to everyone else who played a part in making this, happen. While Chris, had the weight of the world on his shoulders and is probably still exhaling from it, a lot of people, contributed. But Christine and Chris and the people who contributed to the GoFundMe or contributed services that haven't been mentioned. Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who came out. There were a lot of other podcast T-shirts in the house. I don't have it at my desk, but I was looking for a guitar pick at the end of the evening just in case I got a chance to play, and I found a 3 sides of the coin guitar pick used on the floor, which was hilarious. And some of the guys wearing 3 sides T-shirts had come up to our table as well. So while other podcasts weren't there, they were represented and they were a part of it by the people who listened to all of us. So for the podcast listeners, here's a gigantic shout out to all of you, because without listeners, there aren't podcasts. We don't do this. If no one's listening, there's no point.
That's the point. Yeah. Exactly.
Agreed. So, Lonnie, what are your final thoughts about the whole?
Well, we left Sunday morning and we drove down to Lynchburg, Tennessee, and went to the Jack Daniel's distillery.
Nice.
Which was a lot of fun. That Lynchburg, Tennessee, is in the middle of freaking nowhere. I mean, literally, it was unbelievable. And Lynchburg, Tennessee, is located in Moore County, Tennessee, which is actually a dry county. So you can't buy liquor there. However, there is a bottle store at Jack Daniel's, and you can buy a bottle of Jack Daniel's, and it just so happens that liquor is inside of it. It's a bottle store, though, is what they emphasized to us while we were there.
A little loophole.
But the whiskey just happens to be in it, and they every time they referred to it, they didn't, it wasn't, it was the bottle store.
I like it.
There were some expensive bottles in there, but
nice.
It worked out. I was, to my surprise, I was able to make a purchase while I was in Lynchburg, so it was very nice. So it was very interesting too. So Lynchburg was like an hour and a half south of Nashville. So we left that morning and went down there for that, and then we had a lengthy drive home after that. But it was awesome, and it was a good side trip while we were down there. But as far as the expo itself, who was the MVP? Chris was the MVP. I mean, putting that thing on, his vision and his dream became a reality. And kudos to him. I mean, and like we said, there wasn't any, to take some stress off of him during the day. There wasn't anyone bitching. There wasn't a whole lot of people complaining and having fits the whole day. And everybody was in a great mood the whole day. And it was fantastic and well done. And tip of the cap to him. It was awesome.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I remember a few times I was contacting Chris for various things to just talk to him about, and it always seemed that on my messenger he was always online. 4 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, 9 a.m., 2 in the afternoon. And I even asked him once, I go, do you ever really sleep? And he's like, not lately, so it's been a long affair for him, and I think that he deserves a really big pat on the back for all the work he did, because it really paid off. Like I said, I don't think I could think of anything that was a bad that I could think of that went bad with that thing. For me personally, the only thing that was a negative was just my flight back, because my passport got dropped in the overhead compartment of the plane. Much to my surprise, I didn't realize until I was at customs, and they asked me for a passport, and I couldn't find it.
Oh, wow.
And lo and behold, the stewardess that was on the plane with me said, yeah, we found it, it's in the plane, and for some reason she wasn't able to grab it. Only cleaning staff can pick up stuff that's on the plane, so I had to wait 2 hours for my passport to come back to me. So
sounds like a union thing. I couldn't pick it up. It's not my job.
Yeah, it's total union. But in any case, I think the convention went really, really well. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would go back in a heartbeat, and I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that there will be another one next year.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I mean, I guess you guys enjoyed it, and unfortunately I missed it. So, but
summer camp for men.
Yes. One other thing, this is kind of news from the beginning that I should have mentioned that I just thought about too as we were recording here, is that the other podcast, the Kiss My Wax deal, is that book is now available, the 3-volume set for the Kiss vinyl, and I think it's one book of a check-off book where you can check off the ones you have and what you want to buy and that sort of thing. And then the other 2 are the actual, pictures of the albums. And I think Julian has synopsis of each Kiss release in there, the general information. But it has all the label information, different countries, for collectors and stuff. But I know it went on sale last Monday. And I made a purchase too already for that for the books. So anyone out there who's looking or who collects vinyl or just wants to see those, pictures of all the Kiss vinyl and all the releases from the different countries and different re-releases, should pick it up. I think it's a good value. Otherwise, the other thing, as far as the Nashville thing, the guys on the board, the people that who watch this, who attended, it would be nice to hear your experiences on the board too. Of what did you like about it? What are your experiences? What did you see or meet that we didn't talk about here? What are your overall feelings about it? And would you go back next year? And that would be a good feel for whether they maybe want to create another one for next year. From what it sounds like to me, I'll definitely be there next year if they have one. So just based on what I've heard and what I've seen, the pictures, the videos, the whole thing, I thought, oh man, this is pretty awesome deal. And mostly it's about meeting other people. Mark, you have something to
I was
say?
just going to say something too that I'm kind of surprised that we kind of glanced over was I think we should probably also send out some well wishes to the people of Texas there, because during this whole thing they got really bomb blasted there with the hurricane there, and I know that Dr. Fuck was delayed about 4 times from his flight. He was coming out from the Texas area, so it affected a lot of people and a lot of podcasters I know as well that are from that area. So I wish them a speedy recovery in that area, because that was a pretty bad hurricane that happened there.
Yeah, and
I agree.
On that note, I've got some auctions going on right now on eBay. I've got the first one up, which is the last copy of the Peter Criss Let Me Thank You book that the guy who wanted it did not take up after the fact. That is 100% of that is going to the American Red Cross, which is my preferred charity. For Hurricane Harvey relief, I will be putting up some other things, including this is signed by all 5 of the KissFAQ podcasters who were at the Rock N Pod Expo in Nashville. Obviously, Lonnie, myself, Jay, Joe, and Mark. Sorry, Ken. And I will probably be adding some other stuff, including the program, the signed and autographed license plate will likely go up there as well, and that's signed by a whole bunch of podcasters, and these were handed out to the podcasts who participated during the event. So that's a small way that I can help out those suffering in Louisiana now, as well as obviously Texas from this hurricane, as it's going to have an impact for, if not many months, many years. So everyone out there, our thoughts are with you, of course.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because you've seen it all, all over the news, and it's just horrible. You feel for the people there. So, best wishes to them. Okay, well, again, thank all of you for coming and listening to us on Spreaker and iTunes and all the other outlets, and watching us on. I think it's Vivo and YouTube, I believe, right, Julian?
Vimeo.
Vimeo. What did I say?
I have no idea. That's okay.
I don't know. I think it's a new one. I made up. But yeah, thanks again, and leave all your your thoughts and on the board, and let us know what you thought about the Rock N Pod Expo, and what would you like to see to get you come out to the next one next year? What would draw you there if you didn't get drawn this time? So once again, thank you for listening. Thanks from Mark, Lonnie, Julian, and myself, and we'll see you next time.
time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final, there are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.